Hello people, so I don't know if you remember a couple of weeks ago I did a video all about Severus Snape. I made it into a kind of character breakdown and I really enjoyed doing that. It was a kind of more serious video, and planning the video just kind of gave me a broader insight into Snape's life and like why he did certain things and why he acted in a certain way, and it kind of helped me see him in a different way. And it was also nice to just kind of talk about certain characters in that way, and so because of that I thought I'd kind of make it into a little bit of a series. And so episode 2 in my character breakdown series, I'm going to talk about the lovely Remus Lupin. But before I do, if you're new to my channel and you haven't already, then please don't forget to hit that subscribe button to join my little magical corner, and leave this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Okay, so as I said about Severus Snape, I think he's one of the most interesting characters to explore because there are so many depths to his character. But the biggest tragedy, I suppose, about Snape's character was that he was always so misunderstood. And he had a bit of a crap life, let's be honest. And Remus Lupin, again, was like that for me. I feel like he was really misunderstood, especially with him being a werewolf, which is a tragedy, especially since he was afflicted with this horrible disease when he was really young. If you don't know the story, I believe this is what happened. Basically, Remus's father was asked to join the Death Eaters, and because he said no, Fenrir Greyback bit his son, therefore turning him into a werewolf. So yeah, let's explore the life that was Remus Lupin. I haven't done masses and masses of research for this. This is basically going to be mainly my own thoughts and my own opinions based on my own experiences, based on what I know about how people can think and feel in certain situations. You know, it's basically just a kind of psychological way, you know, diving into Remus Lupin's mind at the time of certain events in his life. So yeah, if I get any facts wrong, then please forgive me and correct me in the comments, but I will try and be as factual as I can. So yes, as I said before, Remus Lupin was a very misunderstood character, just like Snape, really, apart from the fact that we know that Remus had a good upbringing. He had parents who loved him and he had friends at school. You know, he wasn't bullied or anything like that. Literally the only thing that was bringing him down when he was a child was the fact that he had to turn into a werewolf every month, which is really crap, I can imagine. People who become werewolves every month, they have such a negative stigma against them. People tend to just see the condition and not the people who's inflicted with them. Some people, like Fenrir Greyback, embrace it, whereas other people, like poor Remus, hates it and lets it take over his life and stops him from being happy. So Remus would have lived his childhood life in fear of being ridiculed, treated differently, judged for his condition. One person saw through that, Albus Dumbledore, who very kindly gave him a place as a student at Hogwarts. There he met and became friends with James Potter, Sirius Black and Peter Pettigrew, and eventually they all found out he was a werewolf and they didn't desert him. You know, I can imagine he was always afraid that they were going to find out and desert him and maybe even bully him for it, but they didn't. They stood by him, and not only that, they became animagi themselves so that they could be with him when he transforms. If that's not friendship, then I don't know what is. I can imagine Remus cherished his friendship with these three people more than anything else. And then when Lily Evans found out, which I can imagine might have been around the time James started a relationship with her, it might have been before, might have been after Hogwarts, I don't know. But again, she saw right through the condition and continued to see Remus for the lovely person he was. And we know this from Prison of Azkaban. Remus says this to Harry. He says how she sees the good in people when no one else does. So yeah, I bet he really valued Lily in his life. And I bet for that brief time after Hogwarts, even though there was the impending war going on, he was happy because he had these people in his life who saw him for who he was and cared for him greatly, and who he cared for greatly. And so that's why I can very strongly imagine that the deepest and darkest point in Remus Lupin's life was when James and Lily were killed and Peter Pettigrew was killed. killed, and Sirius Black was imprisoned for it. In one night, all of his friends were gone. The people who he cared about the most were gone, and suddenly he was alone. I can imagine he went into some kind of deep depression. I reckon he put all these guards up and he cut himself away from society, maybe. I can imagine he didn't want to let anyone close to him for fear of being rejected and for fear of feeling loss again. And the only person, it seems, who could really get close to Remus was probably Dumbledore, and Dumbledore either convinced him to take a place as Defense Against Dark Arts teacher at Hogwarts, or maybe Remus asked for it, but I feel like Dumbledore would have asked him to do it as a way of giving him some kind of value and purpose in his life. Maybe he even asked him to be Defense Against Dark Arts teacher before Harry's third year, but Remus declined, and it was only in his third year that he finally said, yeah, okay, I'll do it. And so he becomes teacher at Hogwarts. He sees the respect he is gaining from the students, especially Harry Potter, and I can imagine it was really special for him to be able to meet Harry Potter. What with him being his best friend's son, there must have been this connection there that Remus felt towards Harry. I can imagine he really enjoyed teaching him Expecto Patronum. Expecto Patronum, I have it on my t-shirt, by the way. Something Remus was really good at. I love the idea that Remus is good at the Patronus charm, because it's all about getting rid of bad memories, and I can imagine that if Remus was ever close to a Dementor, he would have felt that deep depression he felt when his friends were first killed and Sirius was first imprisoned. So I can imagine that he really tried at succeeding in the Patronus charm in case he ever came across Dementors. And then there's this point in Prison of Azkaban where Harry gives him the Marauder's map, and he says that Peter Pettigrew was on it, and you can see that realisation on Remus's face that you don't know why that is until later on, which was the fact that he created this Marauder's map. He knows it doesn't lie, and so there was that realisation Peter Pettigrew was still alive. It was that moment he realised Peter Pettigrew was the one who had betrayed Lily and James. My battery died. Where was I? Remus must have known that Peter Pettigrew was the secret keeper, and he, like everyone else, must have thought that Sirius got the truth out of him, but seeing Peter Pettigrew's name on the Marauder's map must have made him realise that he was the one that betrayed Lily and James, and so therefore Sirius Black is innocent, and the reason Sirius had escaped from Azkaban wasn't to kill Harry, but to protect Harry, because he also knew that Peter Pettigrew was at Hogwarts. So all that stuff at the end of Prison of Azkaban happens. Sirius and Remus reunite for the first time since James and Lily's death, and that must have been such a relief for Remus, because he's got one of his friends back. You know, he thought he'd lost them all, but he's got one of them back. So that is awesome. That must have been an awesome feeling for him. And then, of course, Snape has to ruin it by telling people that he's a werewolf, meaning that he was forced to quit, because he goes right back to being afraid of what parents would think about a werewolf teaching their children. Damn you, Severus Snape. He goes back to being afraid that people just see him as a horrible, dangerous beast. Fast forward a couple of years and we meet Nymphadora Tonks. Remus Lupin meets her, and instantly he feels this kind of connection towards her that he hasn't felt for anyone else, like, ever. That is to assume that he develops feelings for Tonks straight away, but instantly he would have shut down these feelings because he's a werewolf. She would judge him for it. She wouldn't be interested in him. Even if she was, it's too dangerous for him to be in a relationship. He can't do that. He can't ruin someone's life. She, again, sees him for the wonderful human being he is and completely ignores the fact that he's a werewolf. He loves that about her, and not only that, she falls in love with him. This whole thing just frustrates Remus so much, I feel, because he would love the chance to be happy and to live a normal life being in a relationship with this wonderful person, but he doesn't want her to get hurt. He doesn't want to risk ruining her life, or even worse, attacking her in werewolf form. Having kids at this time is completely out of the question for him, because there's this chance of passing down his condition to this baby, and that's something no one would want. So, you know, there's also that. He's thinking this nice young woman deserves to be with someone else who can give her a safe, secure life and a family. He must find it so difficult for other people to accept him for the way he is, and not just because he's a werewolf, because maybe he himself finds it so difficult to accept that, you know, people can like him despite his condition, and not the fact that they would avoid him because of it. He himself can't see himself for the person he is. He himself can only see the werewolf part of him. But eventually he does decide to take a chance on it. He does finally decide to let her in, and not only do they start a relationship, but they get married. I think that post-marriage to Tonks, he would have been the happiest he's ever been, and definitely the happiest he's been since James was alive. And for that moment he would have forgotten about him being a werewolf. He'd forgotten about all of his insecurities, about all of his fears, until perhaps the time came when he had to turn again. And if he was given the wolfsbane potion while he transforms, he gets to keep his own mind. And I can just imagine he sat there as a werewolf thinking through things, and he may suddenly regret everything. And then when Tonks falls pregnant, that is almost the final straw for Remus, because not only does he feel like he's ruined Tonks' life, but now he's ruining an unborn baby's life. A baby he was convinced was going to be born and be forced to turn into this horrible beast every month, just like him. I bet he found it so difficult to forgive himself. He must have felt devastated. He let his guard down. He let himself feel normal, but the thing is, he's not normal. He feels like this baby is going to grow up being abnormal just like him, and maybe this baby's going to resent him for it. He walks out on her because he can't take it anymore. The guilt, the pressure he feels. He's not good enough for her or this baby. Thankfully, he goes to see Harry, Ron and Hermione at Grimmauld Place, and Harry knocks some sense into him. Basically, what he was doing at that point, having walked out on her, was worse and more selfish than what Remus was feeling when he walked out in the first place. I feel like he realised he was ruining her life even more by not being there to support her. So he goes back, and thankfully everything is forgiven, but certainly not forgotten on Remus's part. So instead of him constantly being worried about all of this werewolf stuff, I feel like he then turned it around. He needs to stop being worried about all of this stuff that's been haunting him for most of his life, and instead concentrate on being a good husband, concentrate on being a good father. Little Teddy Lupin is born, and again there is this brief moment for Remus where he's happy. He's got everything he could have ever wanted. He's happy despite the war going on, not happy despite him being a werewolf. And then, sadly, the Battle of Hogwarts comes, and Remus and Lupin are both killed, meaning that little Teddy is left an orphan. What I love the most about Remus's story, I guess, is that he died a happy man at the end of the day. I feel like he died finally accepting his condition. He was finally living his life as normal as he could be. He had a family, something he never thought he would have. In terms of the story and the meaning behind Tonks and Remus's death, if he had to die, then that was, although it was a tragedy, it was a lovely time for him to die. That was my character breakdown of Remus Lupin. Please leave me a comment down below if I have said anything wrong or missed anything out that you feel like I should have said. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you haven't already to join my little magical corner. I make magical videos every single week, so please subscribe to join the fun. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you next time.